Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Wakas and today I'm gonna talk about my brand new MacBook Pro with the M4 Pro chip. This is my first ever Mac. Yeah, you heard that right. I've been a Windows user my whole life, and up until recently I'd never really thought about switching to a Mac computer. But here I am, and today I'm gonna break down my first impressions, the stuff I love about Mac, and I hope this will help you if you're thinking about switching from Windows to macOS. Now I got this MacBook mostly for video editing. That's my main use case, and so far let me tell you that the performance has been insane. I mean, really, the amount of processing power this machine has is simply staggering. So if you're looking for a laptop for video editing, especially 4K video editing, then stay tuned. There's a lot to unpack here, so grab a drink, get comfy, and let's dive in. Before we dive into the nitty-gritty of the MacBook itself, let's quickly talk about the unboxing experience. Yeah, I know some people don't care much about packaging, but as a first-time Mac buyer, I was honestly kinda excited to see how Apple does things. When I opened the box, the first thing that struck me was how premium everything felt. The box itself is super sleek with the iconic Apple logo on the top. One thing I immediately noticed is that the packaging looks exactly the same as the M3 MacBook Pro, and it's a bit odd that Apple didn't bother to change anything at all. So inside everything was well packed, and the MacBook Pro was neatly nestled in a protective cover. The cable and power brick come in their own little compartments, and the whole unboxing process just felt luxurious. And for the record, the power brick that's included in the package is rated at 96 watts and has a single USB-C port. Oh yeah, this braided MagSafe cable looks premium. The actual laptop is nothing short of gorgeous. It's a silver MacBook Pro and the build quality is top notch. Apple has always been known for making high quality products, and this thing is no exception. The aluminum body feels solid and well made. I mean, you can tell this isn't just any laptop, it's something more premium. I got the 14-inch model, which is just the right size for my use case. Not too big, not too small. It's portable enough to carry around but still has enough screen real estate to get real work done. The laptop comes in two color options, Space Black and Space Silver, and I chose the latter as I really like the classic MacBook look. The matte finish does a good job resisting fingerprints, which some people have complained about the black version, and the silver also looks sleek and modern in my opinion. The build quality, as I said, is really good, and honestly it feels like a well thought device. No flexing, no creaking, just solid, robust construction. The hinge is smooth and allows you to open the lid with one hand, which is a small thing, but hey, it's a little details that count, right? The weight is just right as well. Light enough to feel portable, but heavy enough to feel sturdy when you're typing or working on it. In terms of connectivity, Apple did upgrade the USB-C ports on this device over the M3 chip. All USB-C ports are now Thunderbolt 5, which are capable of data transfer speeds up to 120 gigabits per second. These are perfect for high-speed storage, multiple displays and charging. The MagSafe charging port and 3.5mm headphone jack remain at the same position as previous model. And on the right you will find SD card slot plus a full-sized HDMI 2.1 port. Apple has provided users with a great deal of flexibility for connecting external monitors all the way up to 8K displays and multiple screens if their workflow requires heavy multitasking. Now, one of the most significant components of any laptop is its display, and I must say Apple has truly excelled in this regard. The 14-inch Retina display on this MacBook is absolutely gorgeous. It's a liquid Retina XDR display, which means you get super high brightness, deep blacks, and incredible color accuracy, which is what most content creators like me need. I've been editing all my videos on DaVinci Resolve and the colors feel true to life and the blacks look incredibly deep. Plus it supports ProMotion with up to 120Hz refresh rate, which makes scrolling and multitasking feel super smooth. I didn't realize how much I missed the 120Hz smoothness until I used this display. The peak brightness is another standout feature. It can hit 1600 nits of peak brightness for HDR content, making it perfect for editing and watching HDR videos. Even the SDR brightness can go up to 1000 nits under certain light conditions. You can see every tiny detail even in the brightest sunlight or outdoors. Apple also offers an optional nano texture display for an additional $150. The upgrade significantly reduces glare, making it beneficial for outdoor use or in bright environments. I opted for the standard glass version though, and I have no complaints. The trackpad on this device is exceptional, similar to the previous MacBooks. It's spacious, highly responsive and buttery smooth. offering an incredibly fluid experience whether you're navigating the OS, editing photos, or web browsing. The glass surface feels premium and the haptic feedback is precise and consistent, making every click feel satisfying and accurate. I've also liked how macOS handles multi-touch gestures, and the large size of the trackpad gives ample room to the user for gestures like pinch to zoom and swiping between apps. The keyboard is also fairly good, offering a balanced, responsive feel with just the right amount of travel. The keys are well spaced, providing a comfortable typing experience even when writing long documents. The key presses are quiet and satisfying with excellent feedback that makes every stroke feel precise. I've also really liked the backlighting and the fact that I can control the brightness however I like. Overall, the keyboard on this MacBook Pro is one of the best on the market, delivering both comfort and performance. Speaking of performance, the M4 Pro chip is an absolute monster. We're talking 14-core CPU and 20-core GPU with 48GB of RAM and 1TB SSD. This machine is built for power and so far it hasn't let me down. If we go into the performance in more detail, including some benchmarks, for the CPU I ran a couple of benchmarks and the results were insane. In Geekbench 6, the M4 Pro chip showed off its impressive single-core performance with a score of 3894, while its multi-core performance was equally impressive, reaching a score of 22629. For comparison, a high-end Intel Core i9 CPU often scores around 31,000 and about 20,000 single-core and multi-core respectively. So this MacBook is pretty much blowing it out of the water in both single and multi-core performances, especially considering that we are talking about a laptop CPU and a desktop Core i9 top-of-the-line Intel CPU. That's just crazy fast performance for a portable machine of this size. For the GPU, I tested it with Geekbench 6 Metal API and here are the results. I mean, a score of 110,000 is just insane for an integrated GPU. For comparison, an M3 Pro scores around 73,000 on the same test according to Geekbench's website. So the 20-core GPU in this laptop is no joke. And I'm sure you can do some really graphic intensive work with the M4 Pro chip in applications like Blender or After Effects. Now jumping onto the SSD test, I must say it is fairly fast too. I ran some disk speed tests and the read and write speeds came out at 5100 and about 6200 megabytes per second, which is basically on par with many high-end M.2 solid-state drives. So editing large video files or opening huge projects is instantaneous, and the performance here is screaming fast. Now I know some of you might be wondering, how does this thing handle gaming? Well, let's just say it's not a gaming laptop, as Macs are not usually designed for gaming, but you can still play some titles on it if you want. There are many games available on Steam that are optimized for Mac, but as I said earlier, I didn't buy this machine for gaming. I do that on my PS5. So if you want to find out its gaming performance, I'm sure you can find many good videos on YouTube with a plethora of gaming benchmarks. Now let's dive into the part that I am most excited to share with you guys, and that is video editing. As I mentioned, I got this MacBook Pro specifically for 4K video editing, and so far it has absolutely blown me away. I've been using DaVinci Resolve for all my projects, and let me tell you, it works fairly smooth. The timeline playback in DaVinci Resolve has been nothing short of amazing. Even with 4K footage, not just simple footage but high bitrate files like H.624, ProRes and some RED camera files, the timeline playback has been absolute buttery smooth. I've worked on some complex edits with multiple video layers, color grading and effects. And despite all that, there's no lag, no stuttering and no drop in frame rates. It feels like I'm working on a much more expensive desktop workstation and not a laptop machine. I mean, it's been this good. Here's a quick look at a sample project with multiple layers of 4K footage on the timeline in DaVinci Resolve. The footage was all shot with a RED camera, and the files are quite large. I downloaded these from RED's official website. I've also included several duplicates of the same footage with 4 layers, cuts and all the details, and as you can see, the M4 Pro chip is handling it effortlessly. There's absolutely no stuttering or lag, and if I head over to the playback, you will notice it's being played at full quality. I mean, isn't that incredible? A portable machine like this can handle everything so smoothly, allowing me to work on virtually any video project without a hitch. Now, in terms of export times, this is where I was most curious to see how the MacBook Pro would perform. platform, and it didn't disappoint. I took a 20-minute 4K video with color grading, multiple effects and transitions, and it rendered super quickly. For context, this project would take at least 30 minutes to export on my old Windows PC with a solid GPU. But on the MacBook Pro, the export time was reduced to just over 11 minutes. So the M4 Pro's built-in media engine really shines here. One thing I really appreciate is how well this MacBook handles multitasking. I can have multiple DaVinci Resolve windows open with my video editor, color grading panel and effects all running at the same time, and it doesn't slow down. The 48 GB of RAM ensures that I can have large video files open, multiple editing programs running, and even background tasks without hitting any bottlenecks. On Windows, I would often have to close other apps to make sure my video editor didn't lag, but this MacBook just takes it all in stride. Another thing I like, and I have mentioned earlier as well, is the XDR display and its huge advantage in color grading. The colors are incredibly accurate, and the ability to see HDR content in true quality makes it fascinating to enjoy content on platforms like YouTube or Netflix. And even when editing videos, it lets me see the full dynamic range in my footage, which is something I really appreciate when I'm grading 4K footage. Now, the next thing I want to mention is the battery life, because I know that's a big deal for anyone looking at portable computer. And the M4 MacBook Pro is actually really impressive when it comes to battery life. You're looking at up to 22 hours of usage depending on what you're doing. That's a huge improvement compared to many other laptops, and honestly, it's one of the things I love about this device. I know what you're thinking, yeah, that sounds great, but what about when I'm pushing this thing hard, like video editing or running heavy apps? Well, even when you're doing things like 4K video editing or running demanding software, the M4 Pro chip is super power efficient. You will get more battery life than you'd expect, even when you're working on those big projects. And here's the thing, it's not just about battery longevity. It's about real-world usage. I've been using this MacBook Pro for editing videos, multitasking and streaming, and I can get through an entire day of my work without needing to plug it in. It's seriously a game changer, especially if you're out and about a lot and don't want to be chained to a power outlet. Okay, so Mac users always brag about this whole Apple ecosystem and how their Apple devices just seamlessly work together, and to be honest, I found it quite true. I mean, as a first-time Mac user, I didn't fully realize just how integrated everything is across all Apple devices. But now that I've got my own Mac machine, the Apple ecosystem has me hooked. So for starters, I've got an iPhone, an Apple TV, AirPods Pro, and now this MacBook Pro. And the way they all sync up seamlessly is honestly amazing. I can start typing an email or a document on my iPhone and then just can pick up right where I left off on the MacBook Pro. And same goes for Safari tabs or notes, calendar, you name it. And not to forget about AirDrop. I can quickly send files from my iPhone to the MacBook without needing cables or even Wi-Fi. It's just instant. So yeah, the Apple ecosystem does improve the whole Mac experience. The front camera on computers don't get enough attention, but trust me, it's important. The MacBook Pro has a 1080p Full HD camera, and let me tell you, it's way better than the typical webcams you get on most laptops. The image quality is sharp with accurate colors, and the low light performance is surprisingly good. For video calls, it does the job quite well. It's definitely a step up from what I'm used to on Windows laptops. Now, a big concern with powerful laptops is always heat and fan noise. I've had laptops in the past that would sound like jet engine when I push them hard. But with the M4 Pro, Apple has done a great job managing both. Under heavy loads, like when I'm running 4K video, the fans do spin up, but it's surprisingly quiet. And even in the full load, the machine stays relatively cool. I've had it on my lap for hours, and while it does warm a little, it never gets uncomfortably hot. And it's definitely quieter than a lot of Windows machines I've used. It has two fans inside for optimum airflow, and the overall cooling design is pretty efficient. Laptop speakers are really known for their impressive sound, but this MacBook Pro turns that notion on its head. The built-in speakers here are outstanding, offering a rich and immersive audio experience that stands out in the ultra-portable category. The sound is surprisingly full with deep bass, clear mids and crisp highs that make everything from movies to music enjoyable. Now onto the things that I didn't like, which are mostly related to macOS in general rather than the M4 MacBook. So here are the top 3 things I didn't like about the Mac and why I think Windows still has the edge in these areas. The first thing is window management, because there's something that drives me a little crazy with macOS. In Windows, I love how easy it is to manage multiple open windows. For example, with Snap Assist on Windows, you can quickly snap windows to one side or split them across the screen with just a couple of clicks. You can easily manage a bunch of different apps, and the system just makes it intuitive. On the Mac though, it feels a little more complicated. The way macOS handles open windows with its mission control system is just different, and sometimes I find it less efficient. When I have a bunch of windows open, it's harder to quickly switch between them due to the lack of taskbar. Also, the full screen mode in macOS is kind of weird, and if I try to go full screen with one app, it often takes over the entire display and doesn't let me see the other apps at the same time, unless I go back to the split view. It's not as fluid as the way Windows lets you organize and access multiple apps at once. And for someone used to that level of efficiency, it feels like there's a bit more friction here. Next up is the overall learning curve about macOS. While it's got a lot of cool features, there is a learning curve. I've spent a lot of time trying to get used to the way things are done. The file system in Finder, for example, it's just different. I've spent hours looking for files, getting confused by the folder structure, and not knowing where stuff is. Also, the whole thing with the right-clicking is weird, I'll be honest. Windows is way more intuitive when it comes to organizing files and using the right-click context menus. And let's talk about the keyboard shortcuts. It took me forever to learn them, and I'm still not 100% comfortable with switching between command and control. And don't get me started on the lack of Windows support in certain apps. I have a few tools that aren't just available on macOS, and I've had to find alternative apps. Lastly, I have to mention price. The MacBook Pro, especially the one I bought with the M4 Pro chip, is super expensive at over 2.5 grand. That's a lot of money. You're definitely paying for the brand and the premium experience. And for that price, you could easily get a high-spec Windows PC, or even better depending on what you're looking for. So yeah, Apple's premium pricing is definitely something to consider if you're on a budget. Overall, I'm honestly really happy with the Switch so far, especially for my video editing work. This thing is an absolute beast when it comes to handling 4K footage. Battery life is amazing and the overall user experience is top notch. But of course, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I do miss some of the flexibility I had with Windows, especially when it comes to ports, the learning curve with macOS, and let's be real, the price. For anyone considering switching from Windows, I would say if you're into video editing or you want an ultra reliable machine for creative work, the Apple MacBook Pro is an absolute powerhouse. But if you need flexibility, a ton of ports, and don't want to spend almost 3 grand on a computer, then maybe you should look into some high-end Windows laptops instead. And that's all for today. If you liked this video, make sure to hit the like button, and if you want more content related to tech, subscribe to the channel. And if you have any thought about this video, please do share them in the comments. You're watching Digital Feeds, and I will see you in the next video.